Welcome to my channel Vector. Ready for a time jump?
Epoch-Crossers, Part 2, The Escape into the Unknown. If you asked me what the worst thing about an uncontrolled jump through time was, I wouldn't say space-time distortion or violation of the cause and effect principle. I would say nausea. When the world stopped being an orange and blue kaleidoscope and returned to normal colors, mostly gray, I realized my vestibular system had resigned, and my stomach had decided that the 2-century-old croissant was a mistake. I collapsed onto the floor of the transport cabin, which was now shaking slightly, like an old washing machine. Kira, to my surprise, looked completely unfazed. Her perfect sunset-colored jumpsuit wasn't even wrinkled. "Oh, heavens!" I muttered, pressing my cheek against the cold metal. I think I've just violated all the rules of time travel. I've been turned inside out. That's probably highly unprofessional. Kira stood with her arms crossed, looking down at me. The skepticism in her green eyes had been replaced by something like fastidious curiosity. "Unprofessional? You look like a wet dog who found a lemon," she corrected. "But I didn't know analog beings got sick from simple jumps. Our bodies have long been adapted to gravitational shifts. Are you really that ill?" "I'm so ill I think my birth was a mistake," I groaned. "Noted. Must add to the protocol. Ultimer passenger. Regenerative gel and a rag required." I got up, staggering, and looked around. We were in a new transport tube, but it wasn't glass. It was matte, almost stone, and much narrower. On the console where Kira had randomly hit the oldest code, only one dim green light was now shining. "Where are we?" I asked. Kira pressed her thin bracelet, which, thankfully, wasn't tracking her pulse, against the wall. The bracelet made a sound like an old computer sneezing. "Looks like my oldest code sent us to an old sector of the archive city. The year is 2077, the era of the first stable synthesis. This was a time when people were just starting to give up physical cars for gravity platforms but hadn't quite mastered building them yet." "Great. That's closer to my time, at least. Less system shock," I said. Kira opened the hatch. The air was denser, smelling not of ozone, but ozone and burnt plastic. We stepped out into an alleyway that was a curious mix. On one side, holographic advertisements, blinking and too bright. On the other, rusty, angular machines that seemed to have stalled right in the middle of the street and been forgotten. "Look!" Kira pointed with slight horror at a parked vehicle. "Are those tires? Did they really use rubber for movement? How inefficient." "Yes, those are tires." I felt a pang of nostalgia. That's called a car. They made a loud noise and polluted the air. It was part of our charming foolishness. We were on street level, not floating above the city, as we were in 2142. It was dirty, noisy, and, most importantly, uncomfortable. My worn leather jacket at least looked appropriate here. "Okay, we're here. We escaped. Now we need to figure out how to restart the time cycle using this thing." I pulled out the ampoule of Epochal Echo. The cloudy white liquid faintly glowed in the dim light of 2077. Kira squinted at the ampoule. "Looks like very expensive milk, but I trust your grandfather. He was apparently the only analog being who had a real understanding of the movement of time. Our scientists are convinced that time is just a line, not a cycle. That's the problem. If they think time is a line, then when they reach the end of it, they'll just turn off movement. There will be neither progress nor regression. Only a perfect but frozen stability," I said, remembering how Grandpa always hated perfect order. "Perfect stability, where everything is synthesized and boring," Kira sighed. An emotion I hadn't seen before crossed her face. Disappointment. "Maybe that's why I agreed to help you so easily. In 2142, there's nothing worth running away for." Suddenly, a loud, vibrating sound, accompanied by a flashing red light, erupted. It was getting closer. "What is that?" Kira pressed herself against the wall, her eyes wide. "That's the police, Kira. A police patrol. In 2077, they still use those things." I pulled her around a corner, Into the shadow. An angular, armored vehicle roared down the alley, equipped with huge flashing lights and a siren that was loud enough to vibrate your teeth. Written on the side of the car were the words, "Parallel Patrol, ensuring temporal integrity." "The hell?" Kira whispered. "Temporal integrity?" They knew about time travel even then. "Not travel." I recalled my history. "Temporal shifts. In my time, they said that any anomalies, even accidental ones, could cause an economic collapse or, worse, change the results of football games. That was their main phobia. "They're hunting us." Kira turned to me, her eyes burning. "But not from 2142. They were sent from our boring present." The patrol car bore a logo, a stylized cherry against a clockwork background, the same cherry shape that was on the safe. "My grandfather." I slammed my fist against the wall. "He created the transit card, but he couldn't help but leave traces. This parallel patrol is his legacy. They are his insurance against those who want to change time. So, we're being hunted by police who don't know we're from the future, but know we're an anomaly connected to a cherry," Kira processed quickly. "We need a place where they can't find us. A place where analog technology overrides digital." I instantly remembered. The Heritage Reservation. The old sector Kira sent me to in 2142. That's the place where they rejected all modern technology. If we get there, their sensors will be useless. How do we get there? We can't use the tube. They'll track us. And I don't have 2077 money. Kira touched her thin bracelet, puzzled. "Money?" I laughed. "Ido. Analog. And it's always valued. Let's go." I pulled out an old, dirty wallet from my pocket. It contained a couple of crumpled banknotes and, most importantly, copper coins from my time. We stepped onto the main street. It was filled with slow-moving traffic. Blinking signs hung above us, advertising synthetic food and hybrid cars. "We need the most reliable, most old-fashioned transportation," I said. Kira scoffed. "Something coal-powered? You had those?" "Almost. Taxi. They still have drivers who hate talking to a computer and love cash." After a couple of minutes, I hailed an angular yellow taxicab. The driver, a man with a tired face, looked out of the window, which had to be opened manually. "Where to?" he asked in a hoarse voice. "Heritage Reservation. And this is cash." I showed him a worn 20. The driver's eyes lit up. "Cash? Get in. The new coin with the credit scanner is a nightmare. My whole life would be better without credit scanners." "What about the lady? She looks uncomfortable in 2077. She just got out of a clinic. Loud noises bother her." I lied. We got into the taxi. It smelled of dust, something fried, and light exhaust. Kira sat next to me and looked around the interior with disbelief. This is surprisingly unhygienic," she whispered to me. "Is this taxi driver really steering this vehicle manually? Where is his autopilot? Where is his neurointerface?" "He has freedom of choice, Kira. He prefers to decide where to go himself. That's called liberty." I smiled. "The liberty to smell like fried food?" Just then, the bracelet I had ripped off in 2142 suddenly vibrated in my pocket. Not loudly, but persistently. "Jake," Kira whispered. "It activated. We caught some kind of signal." I pulled out the bracelet. It was glowing not red or blue, but green, and text was scrolling across its screen. "Message from Temporal Reserve. Request for contact. Keyword, cherry." "They're looking for us," I said. "But it's not the patrol. It's someone from the reserve." I pressed the screen, which turned out to be touch-sensitive. An image appeared on the bracelet. A young woman, wearing a thick sweater and old-fashioned glasses. She looked tired but kind. "Hello? I'm Ellis. I'm the Temporal Reserve dispatcher." Her voice came through with some static. "I saw your jump. You are an anomaly. You need to come to us. Do you have the item?" "We have the Echo," I said, showing the ampoule. "But the parallel patrol is hunting us. They know about the cherry." Ellis sharply exhaled. "Oh no. They started the hunt earlier than I thought. The patrol isn't police. They are the people your grandfather created to protect the cycle, but they've become stability fanatics. They want to stabilize the echo, which will lead to the final shutdown. We need to get to the Heritage Reservation, I said. It's a trap, Ellis shouted. The patrol is waiting for you there. They know you'll go where there is analog blindness. Your grandfather left another note. You need to go to the very noisiest part of the city, where the sounds of old cars and advertisements will drown out their sensors. I looked at the driver. He was singing along to old rock and roll that was blasting from the speakers. Driver, I yelled, change the route. We need Sector 3, the area of old garages and factories, and turn up the music. We need more noise. The driver shrugged. You've got cash, you get music. Sector 3. Buckle up, old-timer. We're driving like the good old days. He sharply turned the wheel, and the taxi squealed its tires. Tires. Oh, the sweet analog squeal. And sped forward, leaving behind the patrol car, which was too cumbersome for such a maneuver. Kira pressed against me, her eyes burning with excitement mixed with pure terror. This is movement. This is adrenaline. I never experienced anything like this in 2142, she whispered. Welcome to the past, Kira. Everything here runs on adrenaline and bad fuel. This is what movement is. I laughed. Just then, as we sped through the narrow streets with old rock blasting from the speakers, I felt my grandfather's analog compass vibrate in my pocket again. The needle spun wildly, then stopped, pointing directly at Kira. Kira, I leaned toward her. Remember Grandpa said, the key is within you? Yes, I thought it was a metaphor, she said, breathing heavily. Me too. But my compass, which always points to temporal anomalies, is now pointing at you. You're not just a girl from 2142. You're part of this mechanism. You are the living echo. Kira stared at me, her eyes wide. At that moment, we crashed into a pile of trash cans, and the world tilted again for a second. Great, she exhaled, wiping dust from her face. Now I'm not only guilty of violating temporal integrity, but I'm also part of that very integrity. What's next? Do I need to sing to open a door? I don't know, but we need to get to Sector 3. There, amidst the noise, we can figure out how to activate you. And what Grandpa was truly hiding from you. We sped on. On one side, the time police, the fanatics of stability. On the other, a girl who might be the key to saving the very movement of time. And me, Jake, the analog guy in a worn jacket who just wanted an adventure.
Listen to the continuation in part 3.